The Dunbar Armored robbery was the biggest robbery in the United States. If you have a special interest in the biggest robbery cases in the world, I guess you already know this. It took place in 1997 and was almost perfectly executed by 6 men. Beyond being the biggest heist the United States has ever witnessed, it would have been perfect and gone unsolved if not for the slip of one of the robbers. You probably have come across lots of robbery stories. This, however, is like no other. Now, if you like these videos and want to see more, make sure you leave us a like on the video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on post notifications to be the first to watch all our new and exciting videos. Let's get into details. Now, the United States has witnessed a lot of robbery incidents. These various robbery operations are in both big and small scale, and I'm certain you're aware of some of them. While these different robberies have had different effects on their victims on different facilities, no robbery in the history of the United States is as mind-blowing as the Dunbar Armored robbery. This robbery affected the cash flow of Los Angeles at least for a day. Dunbar Armored robbery took place on Mateo Street, Los Angeles, California. It was simply the robbery of the Dunbar Armored facility of $18.9 million. This sum is definitely huge. However, it was equivalent to $30.1 million in 2019. Massive, isn't it? The Dunbar Armored robbery was executed by seemingly regular men who were all childhood friends. It was initiated by Alan Pace III and involved Thomas Lee Johnson, Terry Wayne Brown Sr., Freddie Lynn McCary Jr., Eugene Lamar Hill Jr., and Eric Damon Boyd. These friends carried out the operation clinically and left close to no evidence. This should make you begin to wonder how on earth they were caught. Well, all that was needed to get these robbers was a weak link. These weak link, or a scapegoat as you would call it, turned out to be Eugene Lamar Hill Jr. Now, here's how they were caught. 2 years after the robbery, Hill gave some cash to a real estate broker. Unfortunately for him and other members of the group, the cash was tied with the original currency bands. This got the broker suspicious, and he did what every citizen would do. He got the police involved. I would do the same if I were in his shoes. As you have guessed, the police coming into the picture was the beginning of the end of the road for these robbers. After getting indicted, Hill implicated his other friends. A case of this magnitude will be difficult to go unsolved without the involvement of some high-level professionals. So as you would expect, the robbers were not the only ones implicated. Also implicated were some professionals that played a role in the laundry of the stolen money. After their arrest, the different friends as well as their accomplices were sentenced to various years in prison. As the brain behind the robbery operation, Pace got the heaviest sentence. He was sent to do 24 years in prison. This was closely followed by Boyd's 17 years in prison. The remaining 4 robbers did between 8 to 10 years in prison. That's not all. We both know these robbers did not work alone, so their accomplices had to do 2.5 years in prison. Now, back to the robbery. The thought of robbing an armory is not one a lot of people will ever conceive in a lifetime. Nonetheless, Alan Pace III considered the possibility of successfully robbing an armory and came up with a master plan that worked. Just before the robbery, Pace was a regional safety inspector with Dunbar, so he had easy access to details that the average person never knew existed. While carrying out his daily routine as a worker, Alan took out time to check out as well as photograph the firm's armored car depot in Los Angeles. After getting this done, he got in touch with some of his friends and gave them the details they needed to carry out a successful robbery operation. These details included camera locations and precise floor plans. He did not stop at that. He also provided them with the tools they needed. These tools were radio headsets, a shotgun, pistols, and ski masks. Pace had tampered with vehicles belonging to Dunbar Armory. He therefore was fired for this reason just a day to the robbery. Well, as a man on what appeared like a mission of a lifetime, this did not deter him. This robbery took place on the 12th of September, 1997. Since Pace was once an employee of Dunbar Armory, he knew the vaults were not closed on Friday nights because money was moved in large quantities. On this Friday night, the 6 friends attended a house party which was to serve as a distraction. After being at the party for a couple of hours, they changed into masks and black clothes and headed to the Dunbar Depot. On arrival at Dunbar Depot, they got into the facility via a side door just after 12 a.m. Alan had been fired a day before and was yet to drop everything in his possession as regards the firm. Therefore, he still had his keys with him, and this was instrumental in getting him and his friends into the facility without any resistance. To ensure that everything was smooth, Pace studied the security cameras and came up with a perfect way to avoid them. This was not so difficult, as he once worked in this facility. As soon as they got into the factory, they got all the workers on night duty to lie down on their chests. They also tied their feet and hands with duct tape. This was followed by breaking padlocks for the metal cages with bolt cutters to have access to dollar bills that were supposed to be loaded into automated teller machines in various parts of Los Angeles. As soon as they had access to these bills, they moved them into carts and then into a U-Haul truck that Lamar had rented. This was smart. They, however, did not stop at this. As the insider among his friends, Alan Pace was aware of the bags with the highest denomination. That's not all. He was also aware of the positions of the security cameras. To clean of any trace of their presence, the robbers broke all existing security video cameras. They went even further. They left all existing videotapes. This was easy since they had an insider in their midst. With the robbery successful, the gang members did not go home straight. They drove to the apartment of one of their gang members and changed their clothes. After this, they returned to the house party as you would expect, therefore making it look like they were at the party all along. This operation might not have been so fast. However, it was relatively rapid considering the work that had to be done. 6 men had to move $18.9 million in cash. This was a lot of work and was definitely going to take some time. It lasted 30 minutes, and within this time frame, the 6 friends successfully moved $18.9 million in cash into a U-Haul truck. This robbery could only have been coordinated by an insider, and the Los Angeles Police Department was quick to realize this, therefore making Pace the person of interest. Pace had just been fired, so the police assumed he robbed the firm to get them back. However, they could not prove a point, so Pace was allowed to go on with his life. It was difficult to trace this robbery to the gang, as they were thorough in keeping their newly found fortunes under wraps. They stayed off the radar for half a year before deciding it was time to move to their next phase, which was laundering the $18.9 million. Money laundering was not something they could achieve on their own, so they got help from a Los Angeles immigration attorney called David Matsumoto. They gave Matsumoto $1 million to help them launder this stolen money. And they didn't stop at that. They also gave his assistant the same amount. As an expert at what he did, David was able to help them launder these funds through the purchase of cars and property. He also helped them by writing W-2 tax forms and checks, which gave the impression that they earned wages. Furthermore, Pace set up some firms to help launder extra funds. He did no end at that. He bought property in someone else's name. After the robbery was reported, detectives investigated around Dunbar Armory's loading dock. While at this, they came across a plastic taillight lens that could not be associated with any of the vehicles owned by the firm. This piece of plastic was taken to the FBI forensic lab in Washington. At this lab, the lens was associated with the U-Haul truck. Although this piece of plastic was supposed to lead somewhere, the detectives were quite handicapped as no U-Haul truck was found on the site of the robbery or anywhere around this area. However, this piece of information came alive when Eugene Lamar Hill, one of the robbers, was suspected of participating in this operation. Investigations revealed that Hill had hired a U-Haul truck a day before the robbery and returned it a day after the operation. The hired truck was good evidence. However, this was perhaps not enough evidence to nail him. There was more to come. After his arrest, Hill's apartment was searched, and his apartment was a stack of bills with the same wrapper as the dollar bills stolen from Dunbar Armory 2 years before. At this point, there was nowhere to run, so he had to confess. He did not stop at simply confessing, he led the detectives to his other friends. After being indicted, instead of admitting he was the ringleader of the operation, Pace claimed one of the defendants framed him for having something to do with his wife. Unlike Pace, Boyd was not at the stand. Nonetheless, his father's testimony was used against him. After the robbery, Boyd's father had helped his son launder $177,000 in cash. He did this through his business because his son revealed to him that the money was proceeds from a drug deal. However, much later, he admitted that it was part of the money stolen at the Dunbar Armored depot. Since the robbery was cracked, officers of the Los Angeles Police Department, IRS agents, and the FBI have been able to recover $5 million. This was recovered from cars, homes, and lots of valuables that the robbers bought. While the recovery of $5 million is good news, U.S. Attorney Alejandro M. Mayorkas has put out word for anyone with useful details about the remaining money to come forward. At the moment, $10 million out of the stolen funds is yet to be accounted for. There are reports that the robbers burnt the remaining bills as a way of cleaning their track. Also, some of the money has been spent gambling in Vegas. This heist might have occurred a long time ago. Nonetheless, it is still alive in the minds of a lot of people. Among them are the direct and indirect victims of the robbery, as well as some filmmakers. 24 years after this robbery, it appears it's about to be brought to our TV screens as Caleb Pinkett, the producer of Charm City Kings, has come into partnership with Rebel Maverick to produce a movie called The Dunbar Heist. You don't need to be an intuitive person to tell that this movie is basically about the robbery that occurred at the Dunbar Armory. In charge of the production of this project are Pinkett Smith, Dougie Cash, Clarence Hammond, Nastasia Kalin, and Matt Nicholas. Additionally, this project will be executively produced by Norman Towns. This group of people have a thing for heists, and that is what the driving force behind this production is. So look out for the movie. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give a thumbs up and subscribe. We appreciate it.